Well, hey, happy Wednesday.
Today is Wednesday.
Today is Wednesday. I know the original plan was Monday, but America's birthday, and
That was Tuesday.
that was Tuesday. And then you, sir, I believe
Oh, Monday I wasn't coming to work.
you were
No, I was.
you were somewhat ill, right?
Yes, I was.
I think you can still hear it in his voice a little bit, but you sound better.
I feel better.
Good,
Yes.
good.
Yeah, I feel better than I sound. I
Good.
sounded better and felt worse on Sunday, Monday.
Yo, really?
Yes, so I sounded better, felt worse. Now I feel better, sound worse.
Well, good. Well, I'm glad you're wherever you're at. I'm glad you're here.
I'm trending in the right direction.
Trending in the right direction. Well, hey, we're gonna kind of do like we did after week one and just talk through a little bit about your sermon, just some practical stuff. I think some personal stuff too. Obviously, I thought you did a great job, even considering that you did not feel 100%. I think it still conveyed the message we wanted to. I feel like kind of in your wheelhouse. It seemed like it's like, oh yeah, I can talk about serving all of the time. It seems like something that is just a really natural thing for you to share about.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of bent that direction. And even someone said to me once, a friend of mine said, yeah, one of your strength and your weakness is serving. Like you'll think to do the thing for someone else first rather than teach other people that could do it and that have a multiplying effect. It's like you don't do that well. You do that. You'll just do it well.
You just do it.
Yeah.
You just jump in and serve.
Yes.
Why do you think that is? Has it always been just your personality, or was it like when you came to Jesus, it was just like, man, I'm so grateful. Like, why would I not do this?
I think it's a little bit of both. It's kind of like the whole nature or nurture.
Yeah.
And you can nurture the nature that you have, right? And so I think the nature was already there. That had a service-oriented bent. And then coming to faith, it's like, hey, Jesus expects this of me. And so it kind of gives more reason to do it. And good grief, if the King of Kings is going to wash feet, yeah, you know what? I can hold a baby. I can do whatever. Like absolutely.
Yeah.
I can do it.
What were some of the first things you did serving, maybe for a church? I know you weren't always a pastor, so you just kind of went to church, right? I think that's sometimes what people are like, well, of course he's saying that because Ken's, he's a pastor. You're supposed to say that. Oh, go and serve people. But I vividly remember serving before I was a pastor, and it changed, my life. So what about you?
So, it's interesting. I came to faith in college, and it was part of a larger church, but we met as a college ministry. So there wasn't a lot of Sunday morning serving you needed to do. So the serving there was bent as like what would have been equivalent to a life group. So we called them Bible talks. So that was an area. And then we had an organization, part of the church, that would just serve the impoverished, whether it's food pantry or something like that. So little bits like that. And then when I got into the greater church, children's ministry was a place that I served. And then when we came to Prescott and started volunteering here, I volunteered in children's ministry. And that parlayed itself into a job. And here we are almost 10 years later. Not that I was trying to volunteer my way into a job.
Right.
But that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, it just happened.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes, it did.
Moved out of the marketplace into the church world.
And so it was, children's ministry. And we did, when we were in Tucson, that benevolent arm of the church, we sponsored an orphanage in Mexico, which, living in Tucson, it was 2 hours away. So we would go to this orphanage with some regularity. And it was really just to play with kids. Yeah. Serving these kids they had caretakers. Yeah. They didn't have people who can be engaged with them. So that was probably a big part of serving too.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's cool. Yeah, man. I remember serving out of VBS type thing. First time ever really serving in church. And there was a kid, he was a little rough around the edges. And they were like, D is your responsibility all week. And I was like, all week? I was like, one kid? And they were like, yeah.
You'll see why.
Yeah. Literally, we get to like the end of night one. And I was like, oh, I see why. So
I need backup.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I got it. I'm like 19, just hanging out with D to make sure he just didn't do anything that was a little foolish. But it was like, I was like, man, this is great. I feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I got, same way, man, kind of starting children's ministry. I think everybody should start there. Because if you can do that, you can do anything.
100% you can, because it's not like a coffee cup. Like the
Right.
kid has a mind of its own.
Yep.
The cup does what you want it to do.
That is true. I set it down, it doesn't move.
That's right.
Yeah.
That kids are going to do whatever they
Whatever
darn
they
well
want.
please.
Yeah. And there's that joy, right, of seeing them lights click on for them.
Oh, that's the best.
Yeah.
And I love the whole piece of helping them associate joy with Jesus and joy with church. Like that is so critical in their development of faith.
Yeah.
And then those of us who are older and jaded,
Yeah.
it's incumbent upon us to help them understand the joy
Yeah.
with Jesus. And so
I love that. So talking through your kind of practical, because I love what you said. Hey, I want to give you some handrails, is how you described it. I don't want to just be theory for you.
right,
Which we need the theory. We need the why. We need the
the concept.
I have to do this because service is showing my love for God, right? If
Yes.
I do love others, service shows that. So why did you land on those 5 things? I think we could have went a lot of places, but I think they're somewhat intentional. So maybe why those 5 pieces, and maybe you could just remind us kind of those 5 places that we landed on. And again, just maybe give them some more practical, hey, here's some great ways to jump into these kinds of things.
I started with the low hanging fruit, right? If you're going to participate in the life of the church on a Sunday, we can also serve the people of the church, people that are coming. And so I thought the first one of just, hey, put your preferences last. And I use the example of coming to a different service because 9:30 is so full. So if you're in Prescott, if you come at 8 or 11, now obviously for people that have already done that, they come at 9:30 because they serve at 8 or 11. Well, then they shouldn't do that.
Right.
They stay put.
Right. Or if you're serving at 9:30 in kids, don't leave.
Right. That's right. Yes, that's right. That's right. And I think because that for people who are new to the faith, they went to bed on Saturday after they fought with their spouse and they're like, we need to do something different. Like we need to go to church. They're going to come at 9:30.
Yeah.
They're coming at the convenient time.
Yeah.
And so we should make that room available for people who are just starting to look. And then in Prescott Valley, you could go to the 11 o'clock instead. Right. And then I think too, if that makes a better environment than when the room's fuller. So you switch from the busy service to a lighter service. Mm-hmm. Now for people that are coming to that lighter service, there's a little more energy and it just makes it more enjoyable and you meet new people. Right. So that's a simple thing to do.
And it is a big thing because I'm going to rotate and change my whole preference.
Right.
Because I'm intentionally thinking of others. Like I'm not doing this because I would want to do this. I'm doing it because I'm literally going, there is guest people who are coming and I know that and they want to come to this service. Like it seems like such a small thing to do. It seems almost like, really?
Is it really serving, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not doing anything different other than changing your time.
Right.
But it absolutely makes a difference. But you don't necessarily see it because you don't see that person who you just made a seat for in that service because you're not there.
Right.
So you don't know your impact, but it has an impact.
Yeah, definitely.
And then on the serving on a Sunday to help create the environment, that's huge. Like I said, with kids, with make joy in Jesus. Yeah. Well, how about with people that have never been to church or have been estranged from the faith and are frightened to come back to church? And we've had that happen. I've had conversations with people that are coming back to church for the first time in 15 years. And they're like, I don't belong here. And they're afraid the place is going to burn down.
Yep. I hear that a lot.
Yes. And it's like, and so if we have people who are just welcoming, just trying to extend that joy that Jesus has and that welcoming attitude, that helps set a tone for people to hear a message that is difficult to hear, right? Jason never pulls punches in a sermon. We do the hard things. We teach the hard things. And so imagine you haven't been to church for 15 years and then you hear this hard message. Well, if the experience was lousy, you're not even going to hear the hard message that can give you life.
Right.
But if the experience was great and then you hear this hard message, like, okay, I don't like what he said, but it made some sense and I really liked the people, then I'm going to come back.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's all bad, then I'm just not coming back. So Sunday matters for in that regards. So let's see, inconvenience yourself, serving on a Sunday, setting the environment, serving the least of these.
Yes.
And we talked about kids ministry, student ministry, which we talked about kids, it's fun, but they can't really serve you. So it's just
No,
it's just
not at
hard.
all.
It's just hard work.
It is very
it's
hard work.
fun, but it's also difficult.
Students is incredibly difficult, but so needed.
Yes.
Like a part of me is, we hear all the time from so many folks, and you may even say it, or I may even say it, this generation, this generation behind us, these young kids, like they need people in their lives that
That's
are
right.
pointing them in the right direction. So part of me is like, hey, let's maybe stop complaining about them and let's get in there and give our life to them.
Yes.
And show them the example that they should strive for. Because for me, when I was a high school kid, I had that in youth coaches who were like, hey, doing stuff at their house or life group stuff or going on retreats. It wasn't my parents. They weren't the ones who necessarily showed me faith. It was just volunteers.
Well, and it's funny you mentioned with student ministry. My wife and I purposely stay disengaged from student ministry because we have 4 teenagers, and we're like, they need other people speaking. We would speak, and we still speak into their life, but as it relates to the church structure, we stay out of that. They need their space, and so other adults are speaking into their life.
Yeah,
it's interesting your comment you just made about this generation. So often I'll hear I hear this from men and women. You hear it in 2 different ways. It's the same statement, but it's like guys who are like, man, I want to pour into younger people.
Yeah.
I want to mentor younger people. And women will say, well, the scripture says the older women to teach the younger. And I said, here's how you do that. I said, start in children's ministry because you want to know what's going on in someone's life. Listen to the preschooler pray. You hear that preschooler pray, and you're going to know, I need to talk to mom or dad when they come to pick them up. And now you have a connection. That connection is their most precious thing in their life, their child.
Yeah.
And so there's a connection. There's a, hey, how can I be of service? That takes it beyond that Sunday morning.
Right.
And so when we engage with the kids, or those who can't, that can open the door for real relationships with the parents.
Right.
Which is really what we want to have happen too.
Right, of course.
We want those parents to develop in their following of Jesus. That's not just for the kids.
Right, definitely.
So, serving those who can't serve you. So I mentioned a jail ministry.
Yep.
And so there's such a scope, right? The alleged perpetrator, the victim, both families. There's a lot of people impacted by a crime.
There is.
And Prescott's pretty affluent.
Yeah.
And it's easy to, I don't know, not to intentionally necessarily ignore it, but now it's going to be much more prevalent as far as the jail is here now. It's not just off in Camp Verde.
Right.
They have the jail here, so there's more opportunity.
Yeah. And a lot of people, I've talked to a ton of people, sure people who are listening who have said, man, I'm old church. I used to do jail ministry because it's really common, California or other places, that it's much more applicable because it is right there in the neighborhood.
Right.
Right. Which, like you said, now it's going to be right here in ours. I was actually talking to somebody who's going to work there, and they're actually going to have like a community resource building that's like right on the outside. So when they're getting ready to leave after their time, they can go right in there and get services and they can figure out how to reintegrate into the community, and find the help that they need. So I was like, oh, that's really cool, right?
Yes.
So again, it's not just about, hey, whatever, right? We want to do the time or, the punishment. But we also, if they do that, then how do they then become citizens of our community again? And for the most part, they are probably maybe in a place where they're more likely to hear the gospel message.
You might be more receptive when you've stepped in it and you made a mistake or you're facing judgment.
Yep.
Granted, not an eternal judgment, but you're facing judgment.
Right.
There tends to be, that's when people are more open to God in seasons of life of great change, marriage, parent, loss of a loved one, and then some challenge like this. You're entangled up in the legal system.
Yeah.
That'll do it. So what else did I have in there?
Did you say let's see, at least you said the homeless.
The homeless, yes. And so if you go to the website, we have the resources page. There's ministries to the homeless that we support with dollars, and then with people here who volunteer. I think of a Safe Place as one of them, right? We have multiple people from the church that serve on that team. And that matters a lot. It's easy to, like I said, get a job, right? That's the cynical, man, there's a host of difficulties that someone's gone through in life that get them to that point where they're an adult and they're homeless.
Yeah.
So you're not going to just get a job. That's not the answer.
No,
they need a job, but there's a lot that has to happen.
It's just a whole lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have the thing on Tuesdays now, the community meal, which is a group of people who started serving at CCJ, which is a Coalition for Compassion and Justice, years ago. And then just through the change of their organization and ministry, our people weren't able to still do what they were doing, and they wanted to serve people and share a meal. And so that's really what Tuesday is all about. It's about just sharing a meal and seeing the humanity in people. Yeah, again, ultimately, we want people to know Jesus, but like first we got to know their name. We got to be able to sit at a table and just eat with people, kind of like we talked about in the Making More stuff. And that's all it is. It's literally just eating with people, sharing life with them, sharing their stories. I'm always joke when I'm doing volunteer stuff with that. I'm like, they know we're at a church. Like they get it. Like they're not dumb. They're not like, oh, I wonder what they do here. Right. Most people still have an idea, at least a little bit of church.
Sure.
Right. They get it. Like they understand it. And so, but what they see, I think, are the people now who, at least what I've gathered is like, oh man, these people really care about us. Like genuinely care about who I am. They're not just doing this to check a box.
Right.
Right. Like, oh, I got to check this box. I'm really, really doing this.
And it's funny, in preparing for this message too, is one of the things I thought about. I was like, meaning our family, needs to come. And Frank, who runs a community meal, he said it's a community meal, Ken. It's like anybody can come. He's like, bring the whole. I was like, we need to do that and just go sit with people that we on the regular basis aren't going to interact with. We have to go out of the way, as we should.
Yeah. So, I started doing too, just for a great practical way to serve kind of the homeless. I know we don't have a huge population here. We had a lot bigger population where I was in Louisiana. Obviously, if you go down to the valley, it's a lot bigger. So I would just keep like goodie bags in my car of food and water and toiletry items, right? Because you always get to that corner and you're like, I can't give them money. And I'm like, oh, you can if you want. Most people don't like to do that. So I'm like, man, give them practical things. Give them food, water, just a little Ziploc bag. And if they use it, awesome. Most of the time, if they don't use it, they'll share with somebody. It's kind of the experience I had. But again, it was a great way of me. I had to go out of my way to purchase the things. I actually did with my kids. We'd bag them together. Yep. And then they would just sit in the car. And I'd be like, oh, hey, man, I got this food. If you'd like it, cool, take it. If not, I mean, you don't have to, but here it is, right? Just a very practical thing to do. And it also, for me, it helped me engage my kids kind of in the conversation.
Yeah. I remember when our kids were little, we had that blessings bag.
Yeah,
is what we call them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, just a great way. Yeah. Elderly is another thing I think you said.
Yep.
Which is a really, really interesting thing here in Prescott because of the cost of living and the retirement age community. Like it's a big issue here. And I didn't realize how big an issue it was until we got connected with Bert over at House of Hope.
Yep. And I'll never forget, this lady said to me once, when I turned 70, I became invisible.
Oh, man.
And I was like, wow. Like, she's like, I don't work. Like all the things, your family's dispersed all around the country and what have you. And so we got to go. And I got an email from someone on Sunday, they thanking him for the message and specifically addressing seniors and single, just serving that, because that's got to be tough.
It is,
And so what I explained too is like we try to create the infrastructure and the opportunities for relationships to happen, whether it's through life groups, serving, men and women's ministries, discipleship, and then people will find their peers through those avenues.
Definitely.
We become invisible, and that's going to happen to every single one of us.
Yeah. And it's one of the big things God said in the Old Testament a lot, widows, right?
Yes.
Take care of widows.
Yes.
I mean, the first ministry in the early church was to care for widows.
Yes.
And so if you didn't know, we do support. It's called House of Hope. Every time somebody fills out a New Here form, we donate $10 to their ministry. So the hope by the end of the year, we'd be able to donate, a couple grand to them.
Yes.
Just to serve, which again, it's a population that's forgotten about. And what they do is they have an assisted living that makes it affordable for a lot of situations where they're like, I'm about to be homeless.
Yep.
And man, life on the street is not easy, let alone not easy for a 70-year-old with all the things that are happening. And so,
Yeah, all the health challenges and what have you.
right.
And I think taking care of the widows, it's one thing that the church has done well through the grief share ministry, where they're there to support one another. So widows and widowers, just those relationships, because they're able to support one another,
Right.
help, and they can share, and they share that common experience, which is a
Right.
hard one.
And they sit together at church here at the Prescott campus. They actually have a life group that, because they enjoyed hanging out with one another so much, they found the community that they needed. They have a life group as well, not just the grief share group that meets, but they also have a group that just gets together and talks about the sermon stuff because they felt alone, in those seasons, and they finally found that community that meant so much to them. So
yeah, that's good.
It's a great thing to know and to plug in and to serve and be a part of.
And then what else? The foster and adoption.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So let's talk about the positives for the May family, the positives, and then we're going to talk about the challenges.
Oh, they go hand in hand.
Okay,
they really do. You
can't separate them.
No, you can't. The positives, I mean, and this is going to sound like I'm trying to be super spiritual or something, but it's just reality. I saw how sinful I was. Like how when I introduced children into our home that didn't listen, obey, respect, reciprocate love, and then I saw how conditional my love and affection could be. It's like, oh, this ain't like Jesus. Like I thought I had this figured out.
Yeah.
I thought, like I knew, I was like, our kids are great. I got this parenting thing figured out, man. Give me somebody. We'll take care of, we'll help them out. Yeah. And no, your love isn't enough. And
right.
So that was huge. That was like a much needed dose of humility.
Yeah.
And so it's challenging and it's a blessing and it's a positive. And seeing, I think with our daughter, I'll never forget. So we fostered we've had 2 children adopted, 3 the old-fashioned way, 2 adopted, and then we've probably fostered like 15 kids.
Wow.
And those were short-term.
Yeah.
Even our adopted daughter was supposed to be 3 days of foster care, and now it's been 4 years. But she was probably with us 3 weeks or so, and it was a weekday. And we pull into the church parking lot for something, and she's in her car seat, and my church, like arms in the air. And she had no concept of church until she was with us.
Right.
And I was like, that's cool. Like, it's starting to have an impact. Excuse me. And I look at her now and I'm like, oh yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
But this is way better than what she'd be doing. Like
right.
I'll take the hard so that she's not living in a constant state of fear.
Yeah.
But there are days, I almost said it in the sermon, I didn't, but there are days that I hate my life.
Yeah.
And Jesus says, those who love their life will lose it, but those who hate their life will keep it. Okay, it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
And it's going to be worth it. It's worth it now. Yeah. It's just hard, but we need one another. And we have a pretty robust community of people in the church that have done this. But there's so many kids that are out there that are in need. And if all of our churches just took in a couple kids, what a difference it could make.
Yeah.
But it's never easy. It's always worth it. And it will severely disrupt your life. 100%. Make no mistake about it.
Yeah. I love the honesty that everyone that I talk to, at least that goes here at Quad City, speaks with around this idea of foster and adoption. Nobody sugarcoats it. Everybody tells me over and over. I was talking with another couple, and they were saying the same thing, like tears in their eyes, just how worth it was, but how incredibly challenging it has been and how difficult it is, all of the things. And just having people to support them. I think it's such a great way to do it, right? We do have people in our church, man. If you just want to be the grandparent or the big brother or the big sister, if you just want to be the person that the mom can call in the moment when she just needs a friend to get coffee with, and she can unload and doesn't feel like a bad human being, because I'm sure that's some of it. Because if you're not in it, you have no idea. Like, you don't even know what that's like. And so they don't share, I'm sure, as parents, as foster parents and adoptive parents, like if you're saying these things, you're like, oh, people are gonna think we're crazy.
Oh yeah. Like I said, I mean, when I said we've been bitten, one of my kids have been bitten.
Yeah.
It bitten, lied about repeatedly, lied to repeatedly. Like there are real challenges that are emotional, that are physical, that are mental. Am I crazy?
Yeah.
Like
And there's a lot of ways to plug in and jump in, right? From CASA workers to support people to fostering adopt. How did you guys get in? I'm curious. How did the May family get into foster care?
So I know for my wife, before we were married, she had gone on a mission trip and served in an orphanage in Romania, and that kind of started it for her.
Yeah.
And then we were married, and we would go serve that orphanage in Mexico.
Yeah.
And we considered adopting we were in our 20s, and there was this 13-year-old girl there that Lisa and her just connected. And we had considered, could we adopt, but we couldn't.
Right.
So we were called to serve. I mean, this came down like, hey, we're called to serve the orphans.
Yeah.
And so let's do that. And when we got to the point, we hadn't considered foster care. We just were thinking of adoption. So this was with our son. And we had 3 children at the time, 2 boys and a girl. And the plan was to adopt a girl, like 3 or under, because our daughter was 3.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, we ended up adopting a 5-year-old boy. God had different plans.
Of course he did.
Yes. And that was just, our take was, man, our home is filled with love. Like there are so much joy. We laugh a lot. There is, I love yous all the time. Let's share this with someone who doesn't have this.
Yeah.
And that was the idealistic. And that threw a major wrinkle into that whole dynamic.
Yeah.
And then a few years, probably 5 or 6 years later, we started getting, let's do foster. We're like, let's do short-term foster care. So the respite. So a family's got a child and they need to go out of town and they can't because they have a foster child. Okay, they can come with us for a week.
Yeah.
And so that's why it was like 15 kids, because it was over.
Just turning over a lot.
Yes.
I gotcha. Makes sense.
And then with our daughter, that was supposed to be a 3-day deal. And she, on the day 4, when there's supposed to come pick her up, the caseworker's like, hey, would you be her permanent foster placement? So, but to answer your question, how do we get into it? It was really because, a little bit of experience with it and then wanting to follow Jesus in this, take care of orphans and widows in their distress. These are the orphans.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to be that place of refuge.
Yeah, and God started kind of planting seeds real early, it sounds like, for both of you guys.
Yes.
Kind of doing that stuff.
Yes.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah, and again, it's something that we talk about all the time here. I love that we talk about it all the time as a church. We have multiple people on staff, elders. Like you said, the community here is actually really large. And I think do a really good job, even like in kids ministry with those children of foster and adoption, because they do have more challenges, right? They
yes.
have more, and that we need that, right? We need people who are willing to sit in there and take some of that really hard abuse and aren't going to walk away and quit.
That's, you're saying, right? You're right. It's one thing. Yeah, I can go, let me take the mom for coffee. You know what? Take this poor child who, and here's the judgy piece. This is what I would have been like, oh, you just don't parent this kid. No, that's not it. Oh, that kid just rules the home. No. That kid does not rule the home. The kid's trying to control their internal world, and it shows up like this.
Yeah.
And so they will fight you tooth and nail to have their way, and their way is not. So point being, take the traumatized child for an afternoon. Go to the movies. Go do this. That helps the family tremendously. Like I said, the rest of the family cannot carry the weight alone because it creates a whole different dynamic. It's not like you're introducing one person into your family of 5. Now you have 6 new relationships is what you have, because everybody has a relationship with this new person you've brought in, and it impacts the dynamic of every relationship. Yeah. And sometimes you just need, we need the respite. Yeah. And even if it's just every other Saturday for 4 hours. Yeah. That's helpful. So that is huge help, because we have a lot of people here who do this. We don't have a lot of people who lighten the load for the people doing it.
Gotcha.
Now we have a bunch of people that raised their hands. They came to the event, and now it's just getting the next steps going.
The next steps.
You know, that's probably a half a dozen or so people, which is great. And if we can get a half a dozen more.
Yeah. And it's interesting, Jason said when he talked about this in the Roman stuff, by far probably the hardest thing you can do as a believer. I think you would probably say, yeah.
It's 100%, no doubt.
And so when you think about it as a spiritual discipline, again, when I talked about this, the idea of the discipline, it's short-term pain for long-term reward.
Yes.
Right. And this may be real long-term. Like it may be way off in the future where the reward is coming, right? It may be, you may not see it this side, right? But again, and it's a lot of short-term pain. So like lumping this in as a discipline of serving and then serving in this way, it is going to be really, really hard, but so very worth it.
Well, and it's so funny because I wonder, what are the things that I get wrong that I don't know I've got wrong, right? Maybe certain beliefs that I hold, or I read a passage a certain way and it's wrong, or I'm just straight up wrong and I barked at my wife or my kid. I was wrong in my behavior. There's all kinds of places in my faith I get it wrong. I know I got this one right.
Yeah.
And it's not because I'm special. It's because I can see what Jesus said to do and I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And I don't always have a happy heart about it.
Right. Yeah.
But it's still worth it.
Right. I think maybe we can close there. Kind of, you were talking a little bit before we jumped on, just like some of our way in which we serve just in our American context is sometimes not maybe the correct way. You said we typically serve out of convenience a lot of times.
Out of convenience, right.
Yeah.
So it's, right, there's the religion of Jesus.
Yeah.
And then there's our Americanized version, this religion about Jesus.
Yeah.
And we more do that.
Yeah.
We do, because that's the air that we breathe. That's the culture that we're in. And we're trying to have the religion of Jesus and do what he called us to do. And so service, like it cost the Good Samaritan, it cost him something to serve this complete stranger. And it's going to cost us. It's not going to be convenient. And that's when it pinches. Now you just did it.
Yeah.
It's part of carrying the cross. It's the splinter. That's one of the splinters you're getting from picking up your cross and carrying it. I'm inconvenienced. I'm doubted. I'm second guessed. I don't get it my way. Like there's all kinds of things you give up.
Right.
Worth every penny.
But yeah, again, because I'm being formed into the image of Christ for the sake of others. Like, hopefully all of our lives, everybody at church here at Quad City, we look more like Jesus, not just for me, but for others. And that is then displayed in my love for God is how I serve others, right? Like
That's 100%.
I love how you tied that connection in for us to go, it actually just knowing is not being blessed.
No.
Like, which we struggle with because we want to know a whole lot more, and I don't even think anybody would put serving as a spiritual discipline.
Right.
Right? Like they wouldn't say that, oh yeah, this is one of our spiritual disciplines. So why do you think it is, and we can close on that, why do you think it's important that we understand this as a discipline, a spiritual discipline, a long practice that the church has been doing forever?
Because that's what separates, this is going to sound weird, this is what separates following Jesus from Christianity. Because and when I say that, I know it probably sounds like sacrilegious or something, right? Right. And that's what Christianity is kind of and what I mean is the 21st century Americanized version, right? This thing about Jesus, and it's all about Jesus, and we sing about Jesus, but we rarely do the things that Jesus said to do. And that's what he needs to define our life. And so as a spiritual discipline, if we're not disciplined in it, we won't do it. It'll never become part of who we are. And we might struggle with it. And we might go back and forth and have seasons where we serve well and seasons we don't. But the direction that we're moving should be of service to others. Because how else, it's like with anything, like how do you finish? You won't finish the race if you quit along the way. If you quit, I'm not doing that thing or like
it's too hard. I don't like that.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's the night and day difference of our version of the faith and following Jesus.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Hey, like we said, there's some more resources on the digital page. Some places to jump in and serve. Obviously, you can jump in and serve Quad City. We've got some options, but we have a ton in our community. Or, man, just start Googling stuff and find your passions and connect them with other organizations. Don't go reinvent the wheel.
That's right.
There's a lot of people out there serving. And grab a friend, grab a life group, grab your discipleship group, and just go serve with people, man. It's one of the greatest joys that you can experience. And again, let it hurt you a little bit, as Kenny said. If it ain't pinching, it ain't right. So appreciate you guys listening. Until next time.
Thanks.
Yep.